Hi everybody. I am Dave from Hired, and this is Matthew Cooper from Booking.com. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Hired, we are a platform that matches companies to the top tech talent in the world. And I am from Hired. However, I will not be pitching the product to you today, even though it would be the best opportunity ever. 100 in-house recruitment professionals under one roof, but that's not why Matthew and I are here on stage today. We do have a stand over there, and I'm sure you've met some of my colleagues as well, so you can speak to them afterwards. Working with Matthew Cooper and many of you in the room here, at Hired, we understand that in-house recruitment is tough and it is challenging. So what we would like to do instead is take this opportunity to provide you with some good bits of data, some topics for debate and discussion, and hopefully some takeaways that are practical, so that you hopefully may do your jobs that little bit better. So to help me do this, I have invited Matthew Cooper from Booking.com to be here to give me a hand. We'll be going through some figures and sharing some insights as to how Matthew has done over the past kind of year. So why have I forced Matthew here? Essentially, aside from Booking.com being a partner, they've gone through hypergrowth. Over the past 12 months, Matthew and his colleagues have hired over 700 tech employees. Going through this many hires brings with it some learnings, as you can imagine, war stories, growing pains, and insight. So I hope that the information we share with you today either confirms what you do already or gives you some ideas for the future and for you to implement. So without stealing any more of Matthew's thunder, he's going to go through some of the high-level stats on his fantastic year.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for inviting me along, Dave, and for the intro. Just to put some context, I guess, on why Dave's thought it'd be valuable for me to speak to you today. I've been at Booking.com for about 2 years now. In that time, we've gone through what he called hypergrowth. So just to reiterate, we hired 769 tech personnel within the last year, so that's in the last 12 months to date. And as such, we had to really look at how we go about building our hiring process and how we scale this in a way that allows us to achieve our goals. So currently, we actually have 65 tech recruiters based in Amsterdam. When I joined about 2 years ago, we were about 15. I think I came in as number 15. So we've really had to scale both our recruitment department, but also our processes and what we look to do. In that time, we've also added about 30 different nationalities to our team, and we actually have 72 different nationalities in Booking. And that actually plays a large part of how we look to scale and sort of the values in our business, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing, Matthew. So just before that, we are going to go through two topics: how to build an effective hiring process and how to resonate with engineering talent. So if we crack on with the first topic, how to build an effective hiring process. So here at Hired, we have about 6,000 candidates that appear on our platform and apply to our platform and our website. We have thousands of data points across the hiring process, and for 2017, we saw that the top 10% of talent exists merely for only 10 days on the market. We also found that a job process that takes longer than 21 days has a reaction from the candidates of reducing the amount of closure by 17%. So given this in mind and putting this into context, we can look at Booking.com's hiring process, and Matthew can give us a bit of a lowdown.
Yeah, I mean, this is a valuable insight. I mean, speed is something that is very important throughout any hiring process. So as such, we had to really work on how we could put together a hiring process that was as smooth as possible, as timely and as efficient as possible as well, but also gave us the opportunity to gain insights into a candidate's abilities, how much of a success they were going to be at Booking.com, but also for them to have an understanding of what we do and the role they'll be involved in on day-to-day. Here's a snapshot of the sort of recruitment process we do for a standard software developer or engineer at Booking.com. There'll be an initial phone screen of the recruiter, which is very much focused around the culture and the values of the business and how they could fit within that, and sort of the vision of Booking.com and where they want to be within that. After that, we'll do technical assignments at home, followed by a technical in-depth interview on the phone, where they'll do very, stuff that's very similar and reflective of the work they do on a day-to-day should they come into Booking.com. every single member of our tech department, regardless where we recruit from, and remember we have 72 different nationalities as an organization, we fly them all in for a face-to-face in Amsterdam. Now, this is really just to provide them with an insight of the environment they'll be working in, get to understand the teams they'll be working with. We make sure team lunch is part of that, but also it's about getting them to understand the work they'll be doing and allows us to assess whether they'll be a success at Booking.com. Our typical process would last in the space of about 2 weeks, from initial contact right through to hiring. There are some obstacles though, but we'll come on to those in a little bit.
Absolutely. So just a question on these sort of topics. So how critical is it to have a good, efficient hiring process?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, I think we've seen this already in quite a few of the slides in previous talks. The tech industry is incredibly competitive. There's a shortage of developers, engineers, or tech staff anywhere. And the demand for them has never been higher, I don't think. It's a truly global marketplace, and as such, if you don't have an effective recruitment process or something that's efficient, then you will miss out on good talent. I think for me, the most important aspects of our hiring process is that we have interview stages that reflect the work we do, so candidates get an insight of what we're about and how the sort of work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, so they're aware of what they're coming into, but also it gives us the tools to actually gather evidence that they will be a success should they come into.
Got it. And throughout the 12 months that you've been ramping up this process, what have you done to essentially enable yourselves to hire that 700 figure?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably some of the hardest work we had to do. Building a process that scaled for our business and that suits our business needs was a big challenge. So we went from about a team of about 100 interviewers to a team of about 400 across the different roles. And we had to train them how to assess different values and attributes and softer skills within candidates outside of the technical abilities. One of the things that we had to do with our process was actually take a step back, work out what a successful engineer at Booking.com, what attributes and soft skills they represent, what values they live by, what sort of softer skills make up the difference from a standard performer to an A+ overachiever in our tech department. Once we realized what that was, and we did a lot of work on that, it took us the best part of 12 months, but once we assessed that, we worked out how we could change our interview process to assess those softer skills. So we now, not only do we hire people for technical abilities, but we also hire them for their learning agility, their ability to collaborate or be self-reflective. And we value those skills so much that if there is a slight shortcoming when it comes to technical abilities, we see that as an opportunity to train. So we'll be willing to take the risk on someone who fits our culture and values, but then train them up on the more technical skills.
Great. And how does bias feed into that? So, you know, the 400 interviewers that you have, there are probably varying levels of bar set by them.
Yeah, I mean, that's inevitable. I think it touched on earlier on, I think it was Bonnie was talking about biases in the recruitment process, and there's a lot of biases out there, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And when we have a interviewing pool of 400 plus interviewers, it's very difficult to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction. So part of our interview training, which we rolled out in Q1 this year, where we actually trained, I think, 400 interviewers in the space of 3 months, which was a lot of sleepless nights on my behalf, but a lot of fun as well. That really allowed us to make people aware of the biases. I mean, us as recruiters, we go through this every day. We interview people on a regular basis, so we're aware that there's going to be biases in place, whether it's an all-male panel or if it's from a nationality point of view or the type of company they come from. People who don't interview on a daily basis or haven't been in an interview before, they don't necessarily know of these biases. Making them aware of the bias is the main thing, because you can't eliminate it entirely, but making them aware of it and how we can deal with that. A large part of it is having diverse interviewing panels too.
Fantastic. So just lastly, before we move on to the next topic, is if you could change one thing to improve this process, realistic or not, what would it be?
Biases, I'd like to be able to eliminate that entirely, but that's not something we'll ever be able to get rid of. I think as long as you're aware of it, I think that's half the battle. For me, this might be a booking specific thing though, because we do recruit from all over the world and we fly people into Amsterdam, that does have some knock-on effect. If it's a candidate that does come from further afield and they need to get a visa, that can actually delay our process by about a month, which in those scenarios, if we are dealing with a candidate who's also interviewing at Amazon or Google or Zalando or Microsoft here, we could miss out on good talent. So you have to have some degree of flexibility around your hiring process as well. And if that does mean that you're not necessarily flying everyone in, if they are willing to push things through on a video conference and then we'll fly them across to visit the office before they start or something, you have to be a bit adaptable. But that would be the only thing I'd change.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
So the second topic of today is how to resonate with engineering talent. So at Hired, we work closely with the candidates to perform feedback surveys with them, which then feeds into research that we use to help our clients have more valuable conversations with the top tech talent in the market. And what we found in 2017 was that the new up-and-coming rising workforce valued less on financials, but more on what they were going to do in the role, and also the flexibility that involved. The millennials, like to look at the development that they can have, as opposed to having the salary and the financials at the top of their list. To back that up, there is a survey from Deloitte that goes through millennials as employees in general, and you see that the good work-life balance, opportunities to progress, and flexibility are the top three. But if we drill down specifically into engineering talent, we see that opportunities for professional development is at number one. Salary is there, compensation is second. However, it is not the key driver. And when we work with a lot of our candidates, that is the feedback we have as well. 90% of candidates on our platform choose not the highest job on offer. So, Matthew, just to take your feedback and to have a look at these pieces of data, how do you feel, in your conversations with developers every day? Is this sort of the feedback that you're assessing as well and seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of these, and I hear a lot of these every day, as I'm sure most people here do. What I hear over and over again, because candidates are unique, every candidate has different drivers. They are looking for different things. We like to talk about millennials, we like to package people and talk about tech departments and stuff, but people are unique and they all have different drivers. The things I find overwhelmingly in commonality are people that want to work in organizations which have a fast pace. Technology as an industry is one that's always evolving, always changing. More and more companies becoming tech stack agnostic almost. So it's not necessarily always the skill set, it's actually about the environment you've worked in, how you're working, and the energy in that community. I like to think that it's just most people don't want to go stale, whether that's working on a product that has a scale or a global reach, or whether it's working on the latest frame stacks, or working in a company that allows you to develop your skill sets or move into a new role. That's what I hear on a regular basis. It's more about the opportunities, but it's quite varied.
Great. And when you speak to these individuals, because they're all different, how do you manage the process of pitching in the role, but also the company, and assessing them as a candidate, as a good fit? Yeah,
I mean, that's always a balancing act, right? Because as much as our job as recruiters, we need to, sell the company, we want people to come to us, right? It needs to be an attractive proposition. At the same point, it has to be realistic. You don't want to oversell something. The last thing you want is to have a tech department full of people who have promised the world, but probably aren't actually that great a fit for the business, and it's just not going anywhere. We worked long and hard, really, to come up with a recruitment process and a structure that actually allowed us to demonstrate what the day-to-day role would be, give them real-life examples of that throughout the process, so they actually have an understanding of what we're doing. And generally, that gave them a sense of the values and the culture of the wider organization. We've heard already this morning how important culture is in growing a tech team. And I think if you can show that throughout your hiring process, then that gives you the opportunity to assess whether they're going to be a success in that environment, but also that will give them the chance to see what you're about. And I think that should just sell your role for you.
Got it. And you touched on this already, attributes. So, do you have any good stories out there about attributes coming from the employee and then them being allowed to sort of grow within your firm and having the opportunities to maybe move to different.
There's a lot of different examples at Booking.com actually. I think it's one of those organizations, I'm sure quite a lot of the tech community is, that once you've got your foot in the door, if you live the values and you buy into the message and the direction the company's going in, then it does give you opportunity to move in different directions. I actually had the pleasure when I first joined of working with another tech recruiter called Kim. When I first joined at Booking, he'd been there for a couple of years. He knew the company very well, and he actually worked with the designers. He actually just worked one-on-one with them a lot, and just as of the beginning of this month, we hired him as a UX designer. So he's now joined the team, and that was all just through, he had no technical background, he taught himself how to code, use the packages, design, and we're just giving him the opportunity because, yeah, why not, right?
Fantastic, yeah. And so I think the key thing for him was that he had the right attributes.
Yeah, his attitude brought into Booking.com. He very much was someone who liked to take ownership in his own work, who would put his hand up and wanted to learn and develop more, take on responsibility. He always put the customer at the center of everything we did, even from a recruitment point of view. So from day one, it was clear that he was obviously a Booking.com guy, and we don't want to lose out on those people. And I think that's a message that goes with anyone in technology. You don't want to miss out on good people in your company, so you want to give them opportunities to move, whether that's laterally or vertically. People's professional development, that's up to them. It's a very personal.
Sure. Okay, great. Finally, Booking.com's a large organization. What sort of advice would you give to smaller companies or companies that are ramping up to the scale that you did over this past year?
Yeah. I think one of the main lessons I learned was that don't have a rigid process. Like, be flexible. Like, technology is an ever-changing industry. It's part of the fun of working in it, but also at the same point, if you are inflexible, then you're not going to achieve your goals. You need to have a process that is able to adapt to the business needs. I think even if you're a startup right at the beginning of your journey, or you're a 20-year-old company that's going through rapid growth like Booking.com, I think being able to step back and work out what your culture and your values of your tech department are, and what defines a top achiever in that department, then if you can assess what that is, then it does give you opportunity to actually recruit people for more of a cultural fit, which in turn I do genuinely think will reward you longer term as you look to build a company. As long as you have the resources to actually upskill from a technical point of view. Not everyone's always got the capacity. But.
Great, thank you. So just a couple of takeaways from what Matthew has shared with us today. Bias is a major consideration for hiring both large and small tech businesses. Look to establish the culture of your tech departments and then be able to quantify it. And then finally, candidates can be taught skills but not attributes. And I think we now can move on to any questions for Matthew and I.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.